Hey, Truth Seekers, Zach here. Today it is reported there is another police officer brutality incident, if you will. This time it's a beating. CNN and other networks are touting it as worse than Rodney King. Let's just begin by watching CNN's coverage of this event.
Rodney King. Those are the words from the attorney of a man whose apparent beating by several California... Worse than Rodney King. Those are the words from the attorney of a man whose apparent beating by several California officers was all caught on tape. An investigation is now underway into this incident, which started as deputies were trying to serve an arrest warrant. The suspect fled, eventually stealing a horse and leading the officers on a really wild pursuit.
Well, you see right there, the chase ends with the suspect falling off the horse, kind of hiding, but then spreading his arms and legs on and laying on the ground. Deputies then deployed a taser and appeared to kick and punch the suspect. Stephanie Elam has been following this story for us. Stephanie, it's pretty extraordinary that this was all caught on camera. What more are you learning about what happened?
Truth Seekers, I just want to pause right here. Something that's always sickened me about our society is people's sympathy for police officers and their high regard for police officers. You know, in some ways, my life seems like a cruel joke. I actually had the experience of growing up next door to a police officer whose last name was Cop. C-O-P-P, double P. And anybody who lives in Portland has probably seen the Cop dealerships. Yes, he's part of that family. I don't think he's as rich as his brothers and sisters, but he was a police officer. And the only time I've ever been picked up in my life by my neck was by him when I was about 9 years old, because I was playing with his 8-year-old son. And we were throwing a football back and forth, and I hit his son in the face, and his nose started to bleed, and he went inside crying to his dad, telling him I hurt him, when all we were doing was playing catch. I wasn't trying to hurt him, but his dad came out all in a fit of rage and picked me up by the neck. And you know what happened when I told my dad? My dad didn't do a damn thing. And you know why? It's because he's a police officer. Also, my other great experience with police is years later. My senior year of high school, I was taking this law and justice class, and we had to shadow a police officer and a legal professional, such as a lawyer, for a period of time and do a report on it. And the day I shadowed a police officer was the day I got to be most up close and personal with a dead body in my life, because one of the first calls we responded to that day was the sight of a woman who was obese who had died of a heart attack. And I still remember to this day, once there was a group of more officers that showed up, there was 4 or 5 officers in the room. They asked the daughters to leave the house. They needed to do some police work. Asked them to just wait outside. It was warm weather. It was June 2001 is when it was. And once the police officers had the daughters outside, they started making jokes about how soon they were all going to be there to pick up the daughters who were also heavyset. Making jokes about their future heart attacks coming. And I was 17 years old at the time, and, sometimes my sense of humor you could call a little bit sour too, but it just grossed me out, because I know that these people are supposed to be, the people upholding justice and be good moral people, and they're just not. They're authority-seeking assholes. And since 2001, this country has a lot more police than it did back then. A growing police state. Let's continue with this video.
It is pretty phenomenal when you take a look at that video there, Kate and John. But what they're saying here is that in this case, they went to go serve this arrest warrant because there's an identity theft issue that they were going for in Apple Valley, which is pretty rural, this part that we're talking about here in San Bernardino. He took off in car, then he got out and fled on foot. And then he stole someone's horse, which makes it look like we're in the rural, wild, wild west when you look at this video here, right here, that was obtained, shot by KNBC here in Los Angeles. But they're saying at this point what people are concerned about is the fact that it looks like the suspect puts his arms out and then puts his hands behind his back before he seems to be beaten by these law enforcement officials. Now, the San Bernardino Sheriff John McMahon did put out a statement saying that they are going to do an internal investigation into this use of force, saying the video surrounding this arrest is disturbing, and I've ordered an internal investigation be conducted immediately. So lots of questions about this 30-year-old whose name is Francis Pushak, and whether or not they went too far. As you see, more and more people showing up into this video. So pretty striking when you take a look at it.
Any explanation as to why it took so much force, or they decided to use so much force once he was down, or are they just waiting to provide that, Stephanie?
This is all part of the investigation that they're saying that they're going to look into this, especially since they said they deployed the taser, but they said because his clothes were loose that it didn't actually hit his body, but still the investigation continues.
Isn't it amazing that they have the footage of this? You know, even though I suspect that this is just more of this presentation for this ongoing propaganda, the point needs to be addressed of why is our media giving us all of these stories involving these kind of details? Killing innocent men, beating innocent men. Why are they bombarding us with these stories now? They gave us one in the past, Rodney King. Now, the Rodney King story is becoming a monthly or bi-monthly episode, or in this case, almost in back-to-back days. We were just showing the man supposedly shot to death in South Carolina. Now here today, the beating, well, actually yesterday, April 9th, 4/9, the beating of this man in San Bernardino. And with regards to 4/9, Truth Seeker, the date of April 9th, it's a lot like the number 49. The name Michael comes from Revelation in the Bible. Revelation has a Pythagorean gematria of 49. In regards to the Michael Brown shooting, it was date numerology with 49. Here, I want to write out the word Michael for you to see first. This is important. This is what Michael looks like in Pythagorean gematria. M becomes 4. It's the 13th letter. I is the 9th. C is the 3rd. H is the 8th, so on. So Michael looks like that, and it sums to 33. This name comes from Revelation, which has a gematria of 49. It was a week where Monday fell on a date with 49 numerology and Friday a date with 53 numerology. That was the week of the Michael Brown protests. And if you were following my video blog, I showed how all of these acts were scripted by the numbers. The guests, the witnesses, the whole thing by the numbers. So here we are April 9th, and we're getting another police brutality story. The man shot in the back happened on the 47-year anniversary of the MLK assassination. I have been alleging that the Freemasons are responsible for this. They run the police departments, they run the media, and they are responsible for doing this coding and by the numbers. And in the case of San Bernardino, where this beating just happened, there is more evidence. San Bernardino has a Pythagorean gematria of 62 and 71. The word Mason equals 62 in simple English gematria. Notice that Bernardino is 55, like the word Satan. Do you guys know what the national speed limit is? 55 miles per hour for highways and freeways. Of course, this involves the police. 33 is the highest degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. And the acronym for San Bernardino Police Department is 41, another number of interest. If they don't use the D, then it's 37, which also ties into this story, because the victim was supposedly kicked 37 times, maybe for SBP without the D. But 41 is an important number. USA equals 41, King equals 41, home equals 41, mom equals 41, a number of importance. The victim's name is also interesting. Francis Pushak, it generates this gematria of 53, 62 like Mason, 71, 80. Numbers we see repeatedly. His initials FP can break down to 6, 7, or F is 6, P is 16. It sums to 22. But this number 67 isn't a number of importance. The word satanic also equals 67. And satanic ties in with the Freemasons because Freemasonry is Satanism in disguise. All this coding is present. All these rituals are a part of it. Do what thou wilt. Rule by deceit. Also, look at the name of the victim, Francis Pusak. It has this gematria of 152, which we're seeing a lot. In a lot of stories, we're finding the number 152. I noticed this first with the Andreas Lubitz, the pilot of the Germanwings plane that supposedly crashed intentionally into the Alps. Remember, the pilot initials were AL and PS, Andreas Lubitz, Patrick Sonnenheimer, ALPS equals Alps. All this stuff is coded and by the numbers. And remember, in this story, they were saying that it was like the Rodney King beating. Rodney King was once beaten on March 3rd. Trayvon Martin was buried March 3rd. March 3rd is 3-3. His initials, Trayvon Martin, that's 20 plus 13, 33. His attacker, George Zimmerman, that's G plus Z, 33. And again, he was like a junior wannabe police officer. Since his story, they've just become full-on police. And so that begs the question, why are they doing this? Why do they continue to do these stories, code them by the numbers? What's it all about? Well, think about it, Truth Seeker. The post 9/11 era, and even before that, was about building this police state around us. Now what are they doing? With this media, they're provoking people. They're making more and more people think. That something very bad is around the corner. And the police are more and more unjust. And the police are less and less trustworthy. Under these conditions, under this constant propaganda, they're provoking the people to act out. Eventually, these fake police shootings, beatings, and vice versa shootings of the police are going to flip the script, and real attacks on police officers are going to be happening. You know what I mean? That's what they want. They want to provoke the real attacks on police officers. Why? So that they can further step up the police state they've been building. I live in a little town north of Washington. There's now literally one of those armored police vehicles that you see occasionally in the parking lot. You know? What do we need that for? We need something that looks like a tank in our little tiny town? I mean, come on. It's a joke. This is what they're doing. They want more of. If people start legitimately attacking police officers, it's going to become a lot more real, and we're going to see a lot more legislation, and we're going to see a lot more police cameras. In South Carolina, the legislation's already approved money for way more cameras in South Carolina. So out of this incident, they're going to put up more cameras. I mean, we don't have to ask ourselves why they do this. The answers are apparent. This is how they build the police state. With one lie, one more false threat, one more bogus story at a time. These stories are microcosms of September 11th. People like me, who since they've seen September 11th truth, have said we have to get justice for this, otherwise things will continue to get worse, are 100% correct. That's what I've said since the day 9/11 happened. I said if we allow this to happen, that means we're just going to be lied to more. We're going to be led down a darker path. And here we are. It's 2015. It's 14 years later. That means it's been 47 years since 68. Another number that was much of importance to these people. 2001 came 33 years after 68. That's the year 911 was made the National Emergency Dialing Code. That's the year World Trade Center construction began. That's the year George W. Bush graduated from Yale in Skull and Bones. MLK was assassinated. Robert Kennedy was assassinated. Either that or they faked their deaths. There's a lot of evidence for that in this numerology as well. But it could be either way. Also, Space Odyssey 2001 came out that year. My point is, Truth Seeker, it's always been this way. The numerological conspiracy has always been upon us. This is how they've been waging their madness, the elites. Those who govern from the shadows. Even in the story, punched 37 times. The numbers are always there for a reason. Looking at this, Truth Seeker, it reminds me of the day I got arrested not long ago. On March 7th is the day I got arrested. 3/7. How about that? That's the 66th day of the year. The name Zachary equals 37. The name Zachary Hubbard equals 66. I got arrested for the first time on 3/7, the 66th day of the year. And this reminds me of it. The police were called on me because I talked back to my neighbor who robbed my house in November and who, after I confronted him but never threatened him, filed a restraining order against me, which a judge upheld. And he called the police to tattletale on me, like the way a little kid does when he stirs up a problem and then tells on the person once he's created the drama. He did the same thing a little kid does. And when the police showed up, I told him exactly what happened. And 4 police cars showed up, 5 police officers total. And one was speaking to me, the other were in close proximity. And when he went in to arrest me, they all got around me in closer proximity. And I thought, look at this. I'm out here working in my yard, weeding my yard. I was literally weeding the dirt when they came. And, you know, it just seemed like they were all chomping at the bit just to get in, and like they loved doing this. You know what I mean? Here they are. They didn't lift a goddamn finger to do anything about it when I gave them all the evidence of how this person robbed my house. They didn't seem to give one shit. But then when this person calls the police on me over some real nonsense, I got police all over me, ready to arrest. And unfortunately, I didn't get kicked in the nuts like this guy, but I did get groped big time when I was in custody when they're checking you into the jail. The men who were in there reminded me of the fat pigs described in the book Animal Farm. So all these people, these police, you know, there's no such thing as a good police. To uphold this legal system we have, to uphold this bullshit, to arrest people for marijuana and do the things that police do, those people are traitors against humanity. There's never been a good police. I'm just ranting. One more point. Police officer is what we call them. Police is 33, officer is 44. Now, I think the 44 on officer is dualistic. These men are trained to kill, they carry guns, but they are also made targets, and they have been for years in movies. Think about it. The movies have always made police look bad. Always. How many movies are there about corrupt, crooked police? Remember, the Gang of 33 makes the movies. They make the media. They run the police. So they've always wanted that perception out there. It's just that now that our movies, our news is now carrying police stories like the way the movies present police. That's what's interesting. All right, Truth Seeker. Until next time.